In some of my applications, I have details disclosure widgets. And in some cases, I want to link to those widgets. Now, linking to the widgets, I want to do two things. One, I want to obviously take the user to the widget, but I would also like for the contents of the disclosure to be expanded automatically. And there are a couple of ways to do this, but the way that I've landed on is linking to the summary element and then automatically exposing the relevant content for that detail. So let's just take a look in the browser to see what I mean. Here I have my links to the three different disclosures I have in this demo, and I'll just scroll down to show you that I have the markdown syntax, the keyboard shortcuts, and the privacy policy. Let's close that one. Let's get rid of all the anchors here. And the reason I have so much margin here is so that I can make sure that the scrolling is working. So let's scroll to the markdown syntax, and you'll see that I have scrolled to the markdown syntax disclosure element. I've linked to the summary element within that disclosure. So you can see that I have the outline here of focus, which incidentally, the browser doesn't seem to want to outline summaries by default. So I did have to go and add some focus and focus visible CSS to the summary element. And you can see that the contents of this disclosure are exposed. So let's go back up here and try the other ones. Again, it scrolled down to the keyboard focus, shortcuts, focus, expanded automatically. These disclosure elements all have the same name, so they act almost like radio buttons. That's not widely supported yet in the browsers, but it is newly supported, so it should work in all the major browsers as of today. Let's go back down to the privacy policy as well. Now, the way this is working is with a little bit of JavaScript. So I'm linking to the summary element. So I have my hash here, and you can see this has summary 3. If I go up here and I link down, you can see it's summary 2. And again, if we link to the markdown, it's summary 1. And those are the IDs of the summary elements. And what I'm doing is I'm looking for the hash change. When it changes, I walk up the node tree looking for the parent details control, and I'm making sure that that control is open. And let's take a look at the JavaScript. If we scroll down, again, we'll see that the IDs here are on all the summary elements. And if we scroll down, the JavaScript is fairly simple. I'm listening to both the initial page load of the window as well as the hash change, and the hash change fires anytime that fragment of the URL changes. And what we do is we look for the target. That's going to be the element being pointed to by the hash or the fragment. And I'm checking to see that that current element is a summary element within the details there. Once I have my summary, I go up, I look for the parent element, which is the details. I'm doing a safe navigation operator here, just in case maybe there's a semantic issue where the summary is not inside the correct thing, or sorry. I'm doing this because the target isn't always the summary. So it's very possible that this comes back with no element. This will be null, which means that when I try to do this, I want to make sure that I don't have a null reference error. And then I check to see, do we have a details element? And if that details is not open, I set that open to true. And that will automatically be reflected in the DOM as the open attribute. So there is definitely some elbow grease that has to be applied here, but I think it gets the good combination of user experiences, meaning that when I click down, I'm getting the focus, so it's very clear to the user where the focus is within the document, and I get that automatic expansion of the content itself. Now, one thing that I could have done was I actually could have linked directly to the section itself. And the reason that would work is because the browser has an ancestor revealing algorithm. If you attempt to link to as a target an element that is hidden, the browser will walk up the DOM tree looking for ways to expose that element to the user. It will see that it's within a details, and therefore it will automatically add the open attribute to the details. I ultimately didn't like that solution for two reasons. One, there's no focus ring because you're not focused on the summary, you're focused on the content. And I suppose I could have added some CSS to outline it, but it just didn't feel right. It also feels like it dumped the user into content without any explanation of what that content was. And more likely than not, it would have scrolled actually beyond the summary because I was linking to this element. You can, of course, counteract that with some scroll margins, but it felt like I was working against what the browser naturally wanted to do, which is why I ended up using links to the summary. Plus, if the JavaScript fails, I still get linked to something that looks like this. The summary is focused, maybe the disclosure isn't open, but the user can always hit the enter key or the spacebar key to automatically expand that content once it gets linked to. So it felt like it was cutting within the grain of what the browser wants to do naturally. And I'm pleased with that. But obviously, if anyone has any suggestions, I am here for any improvements.